Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is week 3 of Convention and Event Services. We are looking at budget and site selection. So today we'll be going over those two topics. This is a video lecture for you to make sure that you watch, follow along, and do any of the assessments that I ask you to. We will also be having a live class this week, so if you are watching this before Thursday, please be aware that there is a live class on Thursday, and I believe we're all going to start meeting at 9 a.m., not 8 a.m., and we'll go from there. So this week we have a few things I want to show. First of all is when we talk about budgeting for an event, we have to think about the purpose. So the idea is that we want to achieve a maximum benefit from the resources available to an organization over that period of time. As you probably can tell, that statement, it sounds very much like a SMART objective. So the event budget is simply a working tool, and it communicates and controls income and expenses throughout this entire process. Now, you will probably be most likely a meeting manager or a catering manager or one of those roles at one of these locations. So it's important to understand what your role is in the whole thing. You are very rarely going to be the people who want to run an event. You're very rarely going to be the attendee of the event. Rather, you are going to be the host location in most of your jobs. So you're going to have some objectives. So what's your financial goal? You also have to ask yourself, or ask the people who are running the event, is your purpose of this meeting to generate a profit, which at some consumer shows and trade shows that might be true, to break even, which is that they're going to pay a fee, but we just want to cover all of our costs. We're not trying to make money. And this could be easily shown as an example in the Connect 2 careers. So we were just trying to cover our costs. Or are we trying to actually have a deficit? And by trying to have a deficit, I mean, we don't care that we're actually losing money because our goal is something other than that. Like a launch party or a branding party, something that you want to promote something other than making money. So CIBC Run for the Cure. I'm not trying to make money. CIBC isn't trying to make money. They're trying to promote a cause that's good for the world. And then also set some guidelines for that budget flexibility. There are some things that we have to think about when we're talking about budgets. So these are all the fees and the space available, any registration. Is there any taxable benefits? So if you are donating to charity, much of that money will be a taxable benefit for you. Other things that we want to keep in mind are cash flow. So how much money do we have and how do we get that cash? So in financial management, we talked about cash flow a little bit, and it's not the ability to make money, but the ability to have money when you need it. So this is why early registrations sometimes really help. They registered early, you give them a deal, but that gives you that money to spend early on in the process. So we want to determine our cash flow and also look at if there's any kind of rates of exchanges if we're Canadian and holding an event in the United States or vice versa. Determine special discounts or tax structures, and then also have some special considerations such as, do I have VIP guest speakers or VIP persons coming? Is there any complimentary policies or royalties involved? So budgetary is not always expressed as a monetary value as well. So we may have a budget or a goal that we're trying to meet, and this could be the number of customers attending. We want about 1,000 students to attend our Connect 2 careers. Number of rooms to be occupied. So this could be occupancy rate. This could be number of employees that you're looking to have at your event. Is there any time for setup or breakdown, cooking, etc.? This has a lot to do with your budget as well as the actual timeline of the event. And how about staff needed for labor, specifically when it comes to volunteers, because a lot of events run on volunteers. And what we will find out, or what we will talk about, is volunteers are exactly that, and they are not as reliable as you wish. So if I need 100 volunteers for this event to run, I'm going to try to get 150. Knowing the day of that comes, things happen, and they might not show up. So there's a few things about the actual budget components, and what I'll do is also attach our C2C budget that you can look. It'll tell you how much we pay to rent the gym and all the linens and the gift cards and all of the swag that we give the employers. It'll give you a really idea of how you set up a budget for a particular event. Often we'll have a formula to create registration fees. Registration fees should be created after you have assumed how much money or what the cost is of this entire event. Then you look at it and say, what's my budget policy? Do I want to break even? Then it's simple. Do I want to make money? Then I have to apply an additional amount on top of my break-even amount. Or do I really care? I just want people to show up. So it could be a free event. Identify both your revenue areas, ways that you will make money, most of this through registration fees, but it could be through sponsorships for the event. And then identify all your fixed and variable expenditures as well. Always make sure that you understand that there are taxes. So we pay taxes on everything, 13% HST. And for a lot of stuff, there's gratuities. So 15, 18, 20% gratuities for any food service. You also want to determine hidden costs. This could be overtime, additional security, things that we just haven't thought about before. And often we put that in the budgets as a contingency. So maybe throw an extra 10% of what you think the cost for the whole event will be as a contingency cost. If we don't use it, that's great. But if something does come up, then we need to know. I have also included in this a little budget terminology. So what it's going to be is a Word document with all the different terms for budget. On your own, I'd like you to please go through. But I've also included all the terminology in this particular, in this PowerPoint for you to look through it as well. I'm not going to read all these definitions, as you can all do this yourself. So that's a very, that was fast. That was 7 minutes about budgets. Now, every single event will be different, so I just want you to take that into mind and into consideration. When you are doing a budget in the event industry, it's so vast and varied that to each one, you'll have to really sit down and understand what goals you are trying to reach. Part of the budget is choosing the correct site. So if you're thinking about a wedding, if you're thinking about a conference, if you're thinking about just a team meeting, what are we going to choose and how are we going to choose it? This has changed a lot, obviously, in the last year, as most physical spaces are no longer able to be used. So can your event go to a virtual space? And if so, how does that look? Or does it need to be postponed? If it is a wedding, if it is a trade show, a consumer trade show, these are things that probably cannot change as far as physical location. Sporting arenas and sporting events, for the most part, they can be broadcast and televised, but still you lose a lot of revenue. So they're still happening. And you probably have noticed as well that a lot of the NFL and NHL players are all taking a reduced wage because they can't play as many games and they don't make as much money. If it is a virtual event, what does a virtual space look like and what kind of event? So a conference or a career fair, yes, you can make it a virtual event, but what are you losing if you do so? So let's go into it a little bit more. So it is impossible to overstate the importance of site selection. So the place will actually make the event. So ensuring that it is done correctly should be a fair amount of your time invested into planning this. So you want the physical place, you want to check out the facilities, the feel or the ambiance, and who is working it as well. Good site selection equates basically that a place that both your goals and objectives can be met. And the site selection needs to be met the needs of all stakeholders. So, and as I said before, stakeholders, that anyone that's involved. So it's the attendees, it is the event planners, as well as the host. As an example, let's think about a wedding. So a wedding, the bride and groom must love it. It must be the perfect place for their special day. It must also have, you know, the basics of the ability to serve food and beverage. It has washrooms. It has a dance floor. It has an area for speeches. It has dress rooms or rooms in which they can get ready in. Those are the minimums. As an attendee, yes, I need the food and the beverage and the dance floor and everything else. I also need parking. I also need either transportation there or back, or somewhere close in which to stay if I live out of town. And I also might need valet services. And then as the host, you want to be able to fit all of those people in your actual place, have the personnel, so have the backroom storage, the cooking facilities, the storage facilities, and the ability to do your job and make sure you please both the person that are in the wedding party as well as the attendees. So it's quite complicated when you think about it, as far as all of the stakeholders, they all have different goals and objectives in mind. Which brings us to the 6 steps that you need to follow to successfully select a site. Now I'll just introduce these briefly and then I'll break down each one a little bit more in detail. First, you want to identify your meeting objectives. What are we trying to prove? What are we trying to accomplish? Develop how the meeting will be held. And by meeting, I just want you to know that a meeting could be a 30-minute event. A meeting could be a 3-day event. So meeting the word is used very loosely. Next, we want to determine physical requirements. Then, what are the expectations of the actual attendee? When they come to the event, what do they need to ensure that they're going to have a good time and they take away from this event what we hope that they take away from? Finally, we want to select a couple different meeting destinations that are appropriate for what we have going on, and then look at those look at those options and decide which is best. So the first one is identify meeting objectives. So the meeting objectives will assist the planner in identifying different sites, and you should kind of base this on your different goals and objectives. I need a drink of water. I can't talk. A couple things you also want to look at is determining both the client and the attendee demographics. Where do they come from? Sex, race, religion, while all of these are somewhat hot topic items, we do need to understand what's happening. There might be some religious occurrences or religious beliefs that limit your event as far as when you can have it. If you are of the Jewish faith, Friday evenings from sundown to sunup, typically what happens, from sundown to the following day sundown, they're not supposed to, it's Shabbat, and they're not supposed to be handling money. They're not supposed to be using too much electricity. There's a lot of things that limit them, right? So you just got to be careful about what's going on and who your attendee is and provide options for everyone. You also need to think about the budget philosophy. So we talked about it's either break even, you're making money, or you're running a deficit. So this should really tie in with your meeting objectives. And then how do you think you will achieve the return on investment? And that doesn't always mean money. It could mean many different things. For a career fair, your return on investment is either you get employees or you get a job. For maybe a launch party for a new tequila or phone or whatever it might be, you are looking for more likes and follows on social media. You're looking for people to sign up for longer plans, to buy upgrades. It can really depend based on your meeting. Next one, I'm going to have to keep moving this, is develop meeting format. So how do you want the overall flow of an event to feel like and to look like? So an example, you want to take a look at how many number of general sessions. And by general sessions, another term is plenary session. These are the ones that usually start off the meeting or start off the event and close it down. So there might be a short reception before everyone breaks off to do something else. And then usually at the end of the event, you bring everyone back together to thank them, talk about what you've tried to accomplish during this time, and then they depart from there. You'll also have a number of concurrent sessions. So you want to figure out how, after the very first general session, after they all break apart, where do they go? Do they split up in groups of 5, 10, 20, 50? How many concurrent sessions will there be before they meet back up? Most likely in some sort of meal format. And how long are those sessions going to be? Also, will there be exhibits? So this is more of a consumer show, trade show. Instead of concurrent sessions, you might just have a big exhibit floor where there's multiple booths, and they can go to those booths and check out anything at any time that they would like. There might be also some voluntary concurrent sessions happening. So at the Food and Beverage Expo, the Food and Wine Expo, I should say, there's always these booths and the exhibits happening. But then every hour or so, they'll have a lesson that you can go sit down and watch them understand how to make the perfect tea, or a cooking show on how to make braised beef, or how to layer in cannabis to your beverage program. Those are some of those concurrent sessions that can happen. Meals and breaks. So we talked about it a little bit already, but we need to eat, and we also need snacks, and we need coffee, and we need washroom breaks. So we have to be cognizant of that as they go through. We can't understand that there would be, or can't expect that there will be a 2-hour meeting or a 2-hour session with no break in between. People just need to leave sometimes and go to the washroom or take a phone call. This isn't like class. And then also some social activities, which allows everyone that they just spent that whole day together or those hours together, the ability to relax and not have such a stringent schedule of activities, but the ability just to talk with one another and talk about what they may have learned or talk about what they may have just seen. So a lot about learning, and which most of these meetings are all about. A lot about learning is the ability to reflect on it afterwards. So those social events will really help with those. And then there could be all kinds of other events and activities. Specifically, if you're located at a place like a resort that might have skiing or horseback riding or treetop trekking or something along those lines. We also want to determine the physical requirements. So physical requirements might be the actual space. It could be parking. It could be all of these different things. How many bedrooms do I need or rooms do I need? Are they single or double occupancy? How many meeting spaces? What's the food and beverage that's required of us? Are we giving a breakfast in the morning, lunch, dinner, and then one more breakfast? Or is it just they come for dinner, they have breakfast and lunch the next day, and then they leave? So what kind of spaces are required for that? And then also any audio visual that's required of the actual space. Exhibits and then entertainment. Now this just gives you an idea of a couple different rooms. This is what we would call a concurrent session in here, where you have a guest panel, so 5 or 6 different speakers, and then the audience as well. And this is just a floor plan of a simple bedroom. Other things that you want to think about when you think about layout and physical requirements is accessibility. So is there anyone that's considered disabled, and what kind of access do they need? So ramps versus stairs, or elevators versus stairs. The ability to come in here with a wheelchair, be able to get through all the doors, and be able to access all of their amenities. Those are things that are important as well. Now remember, you don't need to be in a wheelchair to be disabled. You can also be hard of hearing, hard of seeing. Maybe you're generally just older, so asking them to walk long distances from one meeting room to another might just be too much as well. So you really got to factor all of those in. When you think about when you have to book, you also tie this into the objectives, the demographics of your actual people, and then your budget. So you got to pick a specific date or time. And often most events usually pick a couple, knowing that one or the other of them might not work out that well. Or finally, once they select that place, it won't be available. I just read a stat yesterday, or a piece of news, that the Jasper Park Lodge, which is close to Banff, it has 465 rooms, I believe, and every single one of them was booked by one individual for 9 weeks straight. So for 65 days, this individual is booking every single room in this huge, monstrous Fairmont property, which is going to obviously upset other people who are trying to book. So almost for the entirety of the summer. We also have to understand there are religious or statutory holidays. So A, some people might not be able to travel, but also B, they might have other things, other events and other practices that they won't be there for. The price might also go up for those long weekends. There could be scheduling conflicts or competing events. The pricing dates of venues are also really important as well. So as you'll see here, we can look at occupancy rates of different cities, average room rates, and you can see maybe that there's a specific place that I want to help hold my event because it'll be cheaper. So as opposed to maybe holding more of a Canada-wide event in Toronto, I can hold it in Halifax that has lower occupancy rates, a lower average room rate, and then therefore might be a better place for us to run something like this. And we also have to think about seasonal rates at a lot of our facilities, as most of the resorts that we deal with, specifically in the Muskoka area, are not running all year round, not all of them. Having an event May long weekend, June, July, August, and into September might not be the best time. We will end up paying a lot more money. So when we want to do it, might have a direct impact on seasonality. So when we think about accommodation, this is a huge part of why people want to go to events. It's not that I'm going to this conference to learn about geothermal energy or sustainable practices in hospitality. It is that I get to learn that, but I also get to go stay at the Jasper Park Lodge in the mountains, or I get to stay on downtown Toronto at this beautiful hotel. So we want to take a look at the accommodations and a few things we need to understand. Number one, first of all, are they available? Do they have room? And what kind of rooms are available? Are we inviting, so smoking and non-smoking is not really an issue anymore, but perhaps are they pet friendly? So all of a sudden, if you're inviting someone for a 2-day conference, they have pets. People have pets. I can't go anywhere necessarily, me and my wife, unless the place that we're going is pet friendly. So we go to Deerhurst quite often, just stay for a night or two, but we are able to bring our pets because it's a pet friendly hotel. There might be some complimentary or VIP rooms that you have to offer. And then you'll want to think about rates. So there are corporate group and association rates at some hotel chains that you can get a great deal on. Otherwise, you want to take a look and see if your particular workplace can get a better one. So even as alumni of Georgian College, I think it's the Holiday Inn you can get a discount on. You want to check for arrival and departure patterns. So do you need early check-in or check-out? Are you coming by plane? If you are coming by plane and you arrive there 3 hours before check-in, what do you have planned for these people, or are they able to get into their rooms? Also, the availability of parking, buses, and other transportation. Again, if you're asking them to come into an airport into a different city, are you supplying them with transportation to their accommodation, or is that expected that they figure out how to get there on their own? Either way is fine, but they need to know. And then, of course, distance to event. If I'm asking everyone to come into Toronto but then drive up to Huntsville, you're looking at 3 hours or close to. If I'm asking everyone to come into Toronto and then drive up to Huntsville on a Friday, you might be looking at 6 hours. So right away, even though I'm going on this conference, as an attendee, I would be unhappy. I would be upset. I had to fly 3 hours, and then when I got there, I was in a busy airport, and then I had to wait 2 hours for my bags, and then I had to rent a car and drive 6 hours. And at this point, I just want to turn around and go home. So the distance to event and what your expectation is of them matters. And then I just put hotel prices by season here on the right-hand side, and it just really gives you an idea of how the fluctuation changes. Certain places don't have a huge fluctuation. So what's a great example? So here you can see in Halifax, they only really $8 or $9, and that's probably due to the fact that their occupancy is quite low regardless of the year. Niagara Falls has a pretty big decline in wintertime, and then summer obviously is quite busy. Whistler in the wintertime is the most busy because they are a ski hill. So winter is where it's the most busy. It's probably the same with Mount Tremblant. Yeah, Mount Tremblant is the same. So attendee expectation. So who are your people that are coming? What is the age range of participants, an average range? What kind of events and recreational activities am I offering matter? So if I am inviting people who range from 50 to 70 years old, doesn't matter that I'm at a resort that offers cross-country skiing and downhill skiing and things of those nature, which generally that age range doesn't like to participate. But if I'm inviting 20-year-olds, 20 to 30-year-olds, do I have a location that there's fun activities, there's a nightlife, there's places to go and eat and have food? So you really want to look at your participants and think about it like yourself. Me at 25 years old, where do I want to go? What kind of location versus me at 40 years old, which I'm not yet, where do I want to go? It does change. Will they have an expectation of accompanying guests or family members? Is there a guest and family program? So if I bring my children and I'm a single father, is there daycare available? Is there like a school or a kids care or something fun for them to do while I am there in these meetings? Is it important that they have local attractions? Will there be free time throughout this event? So I can go out and go hiking in Algonquin Park during this 3-day conference. So building in and filling in some free time throughout your event is not a horrible idea, depending on what location you have chosen. And then finally, or fifth of the 6 steps, you are going to start selecting different places. So this decision can be dictated by many different things. You might want to think about the meeting objectives and the physical requirements or economic factors. It could be more about sponsoring organizations. So if sponsoring organizations have the bulk of their business and head office near a place, you might want to do that so they can all attend. Again, who the demographics are of the people and the facility that's available. Sorry, I got to keep moving this. This is the activities map and key. Again, it gives you an idea of all the different things that are available in here. This is something that you would offer to the attendees as well. Slide. And then finally, you will evaluate the options. So the idea is that you don't pick one place and hope everything works out for the day that it works and no weather or anything happens. What you're going to do is pick 3 or 4 different locations that you think it works. Ideally, I'm going to pick Huntsville, Cleveland's House, JW Marriott, Bayview Wildwood. These are the 4 locations. They range in level of luxury. So my budget at the JW Marriott's quite high, and then Deerhurst, and then maybe Cleveland's House, then Bayview Wildwood. Those 2 could probably be close to each other. And what I'm going to do is send them an RFP. An RFP stands for Request for Proposal. And basically what you're going to give them is a short list of all of the things that you need for your event to work. So you're going to say, I need 110 rooms, I need breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I need activities, I need a social event, I need 1 big room for hosting big meetings, and then I need 6 breakout rooms for when we're not in the big meetings. State all of your top demands, and then tell them what your budget range is. Now, you don't necessarily need to tell them your budget range, because what happens with that sometimes is if you tell them I can spend $100 per person, they will make sure that it's $100 per person, even though it only costs them $92. So you can put in maybe a larger range. So you say I'm looking to spend between $60 to $95 a person and see where they fall within that. And what you will do essentially as the event organizer is that you would send this RFP to those locations. Now, because we're in hospitality and many of us will be working at those locations, your job might be to respond to the RFP, the request for proposal. So you'll get this request that comes in, and then you're going to look at your staffing and your food programs and your space and your availability, and then you will send them back and say, I can do it for this much. These are the dates that work best for us. I can offer it to you cheaper in an off-season midweek versus than I can on a Friday or Saturday. Let me know if you want to do it. So then there's this negotiation back and forth between the 2 parts. So assuming that we get them to come, everything's great. We have these big areas for these plenary sessions, but then we also want to have a bunch of these breakout rooms, like I mentioned. So how do we set up different rooms to make sure it works? Now we need to know some things. We need to know the purpose of the meeting and the number of guests and how long they expect to have those meetings for. And then it's also nice to know the event programming. So what are they going to be talking about? Is it very interactive, or is it more so a lecture? Is it question and answer, or a panel of speakers? So you really need to know as much as possible about what that person intends to do, or what that event group tends to do at your location. There's a bunch of different ways that we can set up rooms. That is blurry. Sorry about that. So a few of them are the round banquet style. So this is often used for food service, but can also be used for networking, interview, or larger interview groups, breakout groups for working on a project or a problem. There is classroom style. So classroom style you may be very aware of. And it's generally one speaker at the front of the room and everyone's sitting with places to write and record information. Theater style is very similar. It does not allow any working space for you and can have a panel or even just one guest speaker. Hollow square and U-shape. So this is the U-shape. A hollow square would just be one more huge set of tables there. This is great for like boardroom meetings, meetings of people who are all more or less on the same level within your workplace. So it could be like an owners association group where not one person is above the other. You can all see each other and converse with each other and work together. And also somewhat similar to that is your boardroom or conference style, which you see here in the bottom left. So this is a little bit more specifics on how these might be set up. So your round or banquet, it's generally ideal for a small group, good for workshops. 8 is probably the minimum amount of people and 14 is the max. Now 14, and if you've ever been to a wedding where they try to fit 14 people around a round banquet table, it is very tight. So 14 can sit and chat. I wouldn't want 14 people trying to dine with glassware, plates, and cutlery and everything else. Classroom style. So classroom on the bottom right, appropriate for medium to large size groups with speakers at the front. Tables, you can take notes, you can work, you can break out in groups. 20 to 60 people. 60 is our max here at Georgian College, and you will probably even notice that once that room is more than 60 people, you start to lose focus a little bit, or it's very easy to get distracted. Then there's theater style. So if you have more than 60 people, remove the tables, get more of a podium setup with microphones so it's easy to talk over top of people. And this is usually what we use for those plenary or general sessions. There's no tables needed and there's no maximum. The maximum is the amount of chairs that you can fit in the room. No work or conversation between people will really happen. And the boardroom here, so it's appropriate for small groups, usually meetings, board meetings, inter-work meetings, and 14 people or less is ideal, because if you're this person sitting on this first chair all the way down on this other one here that I'm pointing at, that becomes quite difficult to really have a good conversation with. So there is a maximum. If you go more than 14, then you go to the boardroom and you go more for the hollow shape or U shape. So it's a very similar setting, but it does allow for more seating. As you can see here, we got about 6 on each side, so that's 24 people, which is a little bit nicer. Now, good thing about these U-shaped ones is that you might have somebody that's kind of chairing the meeting or conducting the meeting, and the ability to walk in here, pour water, hand out paperwork or pamphlets or brochures or whatever it is, meeting notes. If it's that square, this is kind of dead space in the middle, and there's not the ability for screens up on the wall. And that is it. So, there's a shorter lesson here today, so it's only about 25 minutes. We talk about budget. I will be posting up that budget for you to take a look at. We talk about some budget terminology. I'll be posting up a worksheet as well. Please review that. This week will be our first in-class live class. And I'm really looking forward to it, looking forward to seeing some of your faces, as well as working within both Hopin and working within Virbela. They're a lot of fun, and these could be the future of events. So let's get used to them, let's use them, and let's see you on Thursday at 9 a.m. Thanks for listening. And we want to make sure that we can check all the boxes off for each and all of them.